The goal is to find somewhere where you can find high quality people that cost less. And what I found was that means the Philippines. The Philippines offers a different world of cultural similarity and of education and thought process in how you work that allows to hire really high-level people, or even not high-level people, but at very affordable rates.
Pilates business owners, welcome to the Pilates Business Podcast, brought to you by the people who own, operate and instruct in a successful clinical Pilates studio in Australia. Our mission is to help you to discover Pilates business assets to build your clinical Pilates business success. And now, here is your host, David Gunther.
What if growing your Pilates studio didn't mean growing your payroll or your headaches? What if the support you've been looking for is already out there, just not where you expected to find it? Today we're exploring a different kind of team building, one that doesn't start with a local job ad or another hire you can't quite afford. It starts with a mindset shift and a map that leads offshore. In today's episode, I speak with John Jonas, the founder of OnlineJobs.ph, the largest marketplace for hiring remote Filipino talent. He's helped thousands of small business owners like us build loyal, skilled, and affordable teams without adding chaos or complexity. And in this episode, we'll show you how to start small, scale smart, and avoid the common traps. Let's dive in. Okay, we've got with us today John Jonas from OnlineJobs.ph. And John has a massive amount of experience in the building of remote teams from outside of your country, wherever you might be. I'm in Australia. I'm at the beautiful Malua Bay on the south coast of New South Wales at the moment. Welcome, John.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And John, where are you located at the moment?
I'm in Utah, in
Beautiful.
the United States.
A lot of nice countryside out there.
Yes, there is. There's a lot there too.
A big place. Like here, lots of room, which is nice. We've got some room today to talk about building remote teams for very small businesses like Pilates can, like the Clinical Pilates studios that are owners who are the audience around the world here for this podcast today. And it's a problem. We've talking prior to the recording about the problems of recruiting remotely, of managing a team remotely, and just of, well, what are the outcomes going to be ideally? So we're going to look at those ideal outcomes and how we get there and the mistakes that people will make and how to either avoid those or work through those, and what you should be aiming at rather than aiming at something that is probably not going to work for you in the short, medium or long term. So welcome, John. Let's talk about the dream. How does it look when we're running a dream team of remote workers that are assisting a very small business? You have a lot of experience in this area, John.
Yeah, that's a good place to start, actually. So I think a lot of people, when they come to this with this idea that, remote workers. So if you're from Australia, you're not hiring a remote team in the US, right? That's not the goal, right? The goal is to find somewhere where you can find high quality people that cost less. And what I found was that means the Philippines. And there's all kinds of stuff going into this. And here's the reason. When people come into this, they think, oh, I'm finding people that can only follow instructions. They're very basic people. They're data entry. Maybe they could help with something slightly more. That's what people assume a remote team are. Maybe I could find someone to do some graphic design work, but they don't really understand my culture. So when the reality is, and all of that comes from the world's history of outsourcing to India. And not that India is bad or the people in India are bad, but the cultural differences there are just really difficult. And what I found, this started in 2005 for me, what I found was the Philippines offers a different world of cultural similarity and of education and thought process in how you work that allows to hire really high-level people, or even not high-level people, but at very affordable rates. And so for me, this isn't about, oh, I'm going to hire a low-quality team to deal with my data entry, which is fine if you want to do that. That's a perfectly acceptable way of doing it. But for me, I have a marketing team, I have an SEO team, I have a programming team, I have an admin verification team, I have a content writing team, I have a video team. Like all of these things, they're all in the Philippines, and they're all really high level. They're really good at what they do. And so if we start with the premise of, oh, if I could hire really talented people that are like capable of responding to my own personal emails, which I have someone on my team that does. She responds to my personal emails. And she responds like me often. Someone willing to, if I could find someone who's willing to think through problems, then this is a different premise of like remote team. This isn't it's not a secretary, which is so often what people think they're going in to find, is like secretarial data entry work, when the reality is that's not who I hire. And that's probably not who you're looking to hire. You're looking to hire more talent than that.
Agreed. And with small business, we still have to do a lot of big business things. We still have to compete against big business. We still have to be out there in the world with our social media, with our systems that are based online. With just what we do with small business means that we have to be able to have that talent. And for me, when we started over 5 years ago recruiting people from the Philippines, and I totally agree, it really does have some similarities in aspects of the culture and the ability for us to communicate quite well. There are differences, obviously, and they're worth knowing about and working with. But for a business like us, for a small business, Clinical Pilates Studios around the world, it's what is that huge chunk of tasks that we most need to work on initially? And then that's maybe step one. And then what is step two? And what is step three? And how does that look in an overall plan where you're trying to perhaps start with expanding somebody's hours so you can afford to pay them full time, and so that the business can sustain that, and the employee or the person that we're hiring from the Philippines can look forward to a big commitment with our small business in another country, and to be able to support their lifestyle and their family, because they have very important family values. Obviously, they're in the Philippines, and that's one of the things we need to recognize. And we need to know that, like us, people in the Philippines need to make a good living and need to also enjoy their work, need to know that there's going to be progression. So perhaps we could talk about that a little bit there, John, how we can actually help small businesses get their heads around how to get things started so that they end up with something that's going to be not a waste of time and just another distraction, but something that is going to help them be efficient in their marketplace, be competitive, and be able to make more money essentially as a small business so that they can survive, grow, and be sustainable there.
Yeah, so I think you said something that's really important. So we started this off by talking about remote teams, right? The reality is, and this is what you said, these are people. You're gonna hire a person, just like you would hire a person locally to come work in your Pilates studio. And so, like in the Philippines, you're gonna hire an intelligent human. And that's like the first thing that I want to get across is this isn't a robot. It's not a dumb, you can only do menial tasks kind of thing. So if you need a receptionist at your Pilates studio, I've seen this multiple times now where there's a monitor sitting on the reception desk with someone in the Philippines on the monitor. They're on camera for your operating hours and they're talking to people. And when someone comes in, they greet them. and they give them instructions, and like it actually works really well, and people really like it. Which, now, this sounds weird to not have someone physically in the office. Like, you have someone in the Philippines on a monitor. Yes, they're an intelligent person, and that's the critical thing here. You want to talk about like how you're gonna grow, so this is effective for you. Let's start by saying, what's the difference between this person in the Philippines and the person locally that you would want to hire that maybe you can't afford to hire, right? Well, what is the difference? They're in a different time zone. They have darker skin, maybe, right? I mean, that's a weird thing to say, but what's the difference? Like, they grew up speaking English. English is a primary language of the Philippines. You won't have communication problems with them. They have a slight accent because they speak slightly differently, but like you have a slight accent.
Certainly.
Right? So what's the difference? Like, these are smart people. So what would you do with someone locally in your studio? You want them to create a marketing brochure for you or a piece of marketing.
Help the team at the Pilates Business Podcast keep improving and delivering this important information. Follow the show on your favourite podcast platform and recommend it to other clinical Pilates business owners.
Someone in the Philippines can create that marketing piece that's going to hang on the wall. They can create a policy thing that I'm sure you could find a Pilates instructor out of the Philippines to teach virtual classes in your studio, right? So when you ask what is going to make this effective for you long term, I don't know what each Pilates studio has needs of, right? I know for me, like, I need programmers. I hire full-time programmers in the Philippines for $1,000 to $1,500 a month for full-time work. That's a world of difference than someone locally here, where we're talking $15,000 a month locally for the same quality of people. Or if I need phone calls to be made, I can hire someone in the Philippines. They're like $800 a month for full-time work to make phone calls. And that's a world of difference from someone
Certainly
in the US.
is, and a world of difference from somebody in Australia where we are, and probably in many places around the world where there are clinical Pilates studios like Pilates Can. And they're wonderful ideas that you've come up with, having someone from the Philippines on the screen at reception. One of the advantages that we found from COVID when we reacted to COVID was that our reception people went online, went away from the studio, and that actually provided some benefits because it meant that they could focus more on other things, the other projects. It's a bit hard for a Pilates studio, clinical Pilates studio, to have all of these professional people in different people, because that's just going to add up to too big a team and too big a bill at the end of them each month, and will last about a month and a half. But what we did find is that we're hiring people locally that did have similar to what you're saying. They do have these other skills. They're not just good at sitting in one place and talking to someone about the weather or about how they feel that day, which is important, but that can be done in the session with the instructor, passing by the person in reception. So they were able to work on these marketing tasks. They were able to do things on the website because they did have those qualifications and skills. And it meant that they could do these things at a higher level than the distractions that they were finding at reception. So that was a benefit of COVID. And it also showed us, and we already had people also from the Philippines who had started at that point, and they saved us, quite frankly, in quite a number of ways, because we were able to react just like that to getting all of our sessions online, including our semi-private sessions and including our mat work. Mat work was easier, semi-private was a lot harder, and we don't do that online now that we don't have to. In terms of all the changes we need to make in our scheduling, they saved our bacon, John, and because we were able to do that so quickly. And the overwhelm that would have come, I remember one of our key people who's still with us, been with us for over 5 years now, shout out to Catherine, beautiful person, who saved our bacon again just the other day with making sure we had good communication with one of our other remote workers in the Philippines who is doing exactly the sort of work that you mentioned, the development work on the website and a lot of marketing work for us. But
And Catherine is in
Catherine's
the Philippines.
Yeah, and Catherine
okay.
helps us a lot with HR tasks now, with recruiting and training people for what we do with our scheduling management, because that's one of the biggest, not problem, I don't like to call it problems, but opportunities to shine in the marketplace, to have very schmick scheduling and be able to get the most out of sessions, because we can only have a maximum of 4 people in our semi-private sessions. It's quite specialist what Clinical Pilates Studios will do when we're talking about business like Pilates can. But there's many hundreds, thousands of us around the world that do this because it's a very cost-effective way of being able to deliver personal training in the Pilates space and help people that have really often very quite serious mobility issues. And they can come along and be part of a small group. But if you're running 60 of those per week on your schedule, then you need to make sure that the scheduling, the cancellation, everything that you do with booking people in and then how they unbook is working really well. So Catherine helps us with our help, of course, with everyone working as a team, helped us to recruit a person that is working as our client service coordinator now, and we're building her hours up to full-time, because I believe what you're saying is really important. Full-time out, you mentioned full-time a number of times, and that's the goal for a Clinical Pilates studio, to get somebody in the Philippines up to full-time hours, because that means as a person, they can be fulfilled with their work, they can use that with their family effectively, whereas a piece of work here for 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week, maybe it's not really enough for them to really do what they need to do with their family and with their lifestyle. So having that commitment of full-time hours for them and for you as a business makes a lot of sense to us. And that's what we've been working towards over the years with our people in the Philippines. So Catherine helps us with recruiting and training for that client service coordination and the communication with other Filipino workers there who we're either recruiting or training for specific tasks. And our business is a little bit bigger because we have the podcast and the Pilates Business website and what we do with helping the industry worldwide. So we can look at expanding what we do more so than just scheduling or just a bit of marketing. But that full-time aspect, really important, and that ability to understand where they're coming from in terms of what they need for their side of the bargain. Because on our side of the bargain, we need a lot, right? We expect a lot. We expect them to be there when we want them to be there, when we need to communicate with them. We expect that. That's what you would have in the studio if someone was working in the studio, or remotely if they were working. I always like to use Pilates Can as a bit of an example, John, for what others can possibly do, be it the mistakes we've made, and we've made plenty, and we've lost staff, we've lost remote staff, we've lost local staff, but not for want of trying and, trying to do the right thing. And on many occasions, luckily, doing the right thing, John. So tell us a little bit more about, in the context of that very small business that we're talking about with Clinical Pilates, what are some of the right things that we really need to expect to do and expect with the outcomes from this strategy?
Yeah, great. So let me actually make a comment on what you were just talking about. Hiring full-time is awesome. And if you can hire someone full-time in the Philippines, that's such a big deal. But if you can't, it's fine to hire part-time or hourly. Like, hire someone on an hourly basis and tell them, hey, I'm not sure how many hours I'll have, but here's how much I'll pay you hourly. It's $5 an hour, it's $6 an hour, it's $8 an hour, whatever it is. If you can hire part-time, say, hey, I'm going to pay you 20 hours a week. I'm going to pay you this wage, this salary for these 20 hours a week. In any case, they're an independent contractor. And this is getting to what your expectations are. So in any case, they are an independent contractor. The Philippines government will not allow you to classify them as an employee unless you have a physical presence in the Philippines, which you do not. So what should you expect when hiring someone? Well,
that's just the beginning. In the next week's episode, John's back to break down exactly how to find, hire, and work with the right remote team member for your studio. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. And until then, stay awesome.
You have been listening to the Pilates Business Podcast with David Gunther. If you are enjoying the show, let us know by subscribing and leaving a review. For more information, or if you have any Pilates business questions, visit www.pilatesbusiness.com.au.